Hi, Mario. We discussed the eternity and immutability of religion. What is your opinion on this subject?
Hi, Robert. My opinion about immutability is totally different than it was before, because my understanding of life has changed, as we talked many times so far. So that view is actually the same when we talk about religion, because my understanding is nothing is eternal, everything changes over time. In my understanding, even God, in that standard meaning, religious meaning, also changes, because our perception of events and life and everything changes over time, probably evolves as well. I guess there is always some kind of improvement and evolvement. And I know you will have a different point of view, especially considering Torah. So let's talk about Torah now, and maybe I can comment later about that. What is your opinion about immutability of religion and eternity, of course?
Well, my opinion is, of course, that the Torah is eternal and immutable, and we see this explicitly in the Torah in many places. For example, Deuteronomy 13:1, it says, "All these matters which I command to you, you shall be careful to perform. You may not add to it or diminish from it." Deuteronomy 29:28, "What is revealed is for us and our children forever, to carry out all the words of this Torah." Leviticus 23:14, "It is an everlasting statute for all your generations." Deuteronomy 30:12, "It is not in the heavens." Therefore, if a person will arise, whether Jew or Gentile, and perform a sign or wonder and say that God sent him to do any of the following, he is a false prophet. Add a divine commandment, withdraw a divine commandment, explain a divine commandment in a manner that differs from the tradition received from Moses, or declare that the divine commandments of the Torah are not forever, but rather were given for a limited time. So this is the Torah law definition of a false prophet. From the perspective of Judaism, a specific example of a false prophet is Jesus, who added the commandment to baptize in the name of the Trinity in Matthew 28:19. So he is one example of a false prophet. I think it's very interesting to point out that Deuteronomy 18:18 states, "I will establish a prophet for them from among their brethren, like you, and I will place my words in his mouth. He shall speak to them everything I command him." Now you may ask, if the Torah is eternal and immutable, why did God say that he will send or establish a prophet after Moses, right? So the explanation is, a true prophet is not being sent by God to establish a new or different faith, but rather to instruct the people to fulfill their existing commandments in the Torah of Moses and to warn against transgressing them. And a specific example of a true prophet is Malachi, who said, "Remember the Torah of Moses, my servant." And I think it is important to emphasize this point, that remember the Torah of Moses is the essential message of all later prophets in Judaism, that they have no other function. So the simple reason for the eternity and immutability of the Torah is God is not like man, that he will speak falsely, as Numbers 23:19 states. However, there is a deeper mystical reason. Zohar, of course, is the basic work of Kabbalah, and it explains that God and the Torah are one. So just like God is eternal and immutable, his Torah is also eternal and immutable. So that is my opinion on this subject.
That's good. I just found a commentary on Exodus 13:17 and 17:16. where they say we tend to think of revelation as a highly restrictive term. The fate of a revealed text is to be immutable. We humans have no right to alter what God has given, but in Judaism, precisely because the Torah is revered as divine, it becomes susceptible to unending interpretation. It would be a denigration of God's word to settle it with just a single meaning. So that is just one interesting view I found. Based on that, I've noticed in my life, and I believe if we study a little bit the history of all religions and interpretations, they evolve over time. Understanding, let's say, some books or revelations change over time, how our understanding of life and God or whatever we believe in changes. So I wouldn't say that religion is immutable. I would rather say that the truth which is maybe the subject of religion is, let's say, long lasting. I wouldn't say it's immutable, because I believe that life has been changing all the time. But some laws of the universe we live in, they are probably eternal. So my understanding is that many religions try to convey those laws through religion and calling some creator as omnipotent God. But studying Christianity myself a little bit more than Torah, exactly most critics say about Christianity that sources and development of theology are very mutable, and we often find new sources and new explanations, and of course the theology evolves, no matter the historical facts, which are also hidden probably, but we are getting familiar with historical facts as well. I could say the same about...
Okay, you mentioned that you found a comment. Do you know the specific source of the comment which you read?
Yes, the source is by Rabbi Izmar Skorch.
Okay.
So it's Rabbi. He analyzes after that statement other things as well. I don't want to dig deeper in that, but the opening sentence is very interesting for me, because he opens actually he said, let's say, in the next sentence, in contrast to human speech, which carries a finite range of meanings, the language of God was deemed to be endowed with an infinity of meanings. This theology freed the rabbis to do midrash, creating the anomaly of a canon without closure. The vessels kept changing their contents, new challenges elicited, new insights into a text, viable only on the surface. So, of course, that is a standpoint which I believe there are many in other religions as well. And my understanding, or where I connect my understanding of universe and life with religion, is only as a step on our staircase to, let's say, heaven, or to our evolving into better beings or experiences which make us better human. The same thing is with the origin of Yahweh, who was Firstly, the name Yahweh can be connected with Kenites, which had a patron of metal workers, and they were living in Canaan, that African, Asian part of the world, and shared with Israelites, shared the life and some part of the history. So based on all of that, I wouldn't say anything is immutable, except maybe those laws of life or universe, which I believe many religions want to explain in their way.
Well, I want to go back to something you mentioned specifically. You mentioned the single meaning. Nobody in Judaism claims there is a single meaning in the Torah. So in Judaism, we speak of 4 dimensions of traditional meaning, and they are the simple meaning of the text, the allusions, the hermeneutical interpretations, and the mystical meanings. So every verse in the Torah has at least 4 dimensions of traditional meaning, and you use different interpretive traditions to analyze a verse on a specific level. You want to study, right? So some Jewish rabbis like Rashi focus on the simple meaning of the text, and the Zohar, being the main work of Kabbalah, it focuses on the mystical meanings, right? So Judaism teaches that all those 4 levels were given to Moses within the oral Torah. So that also would reinforce the eternal and immutable argument.
From your point of view?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. If I just can compare, let's say, for a second, Buddhist approach. They say Buddha Gautama was teaching that there are 4 noble truths. Just to compare how general they are. So 4 noble truths were, or are, still are: suffering, cause of suffering, which is attachment, how to end the suffering, end the attachment and pain and the suffering, and 4th one is path, which leads to ending of attachments and release from suffering. So in my opinion, that is very general to say. It's not given as a commandment or whatever, just as a philosophical view of understanding life. And Buddha also thought about eightfold path, which is together with these 4 noble truths, the basics of Buddhism. And that eightfold path to achieve end of suffering is right view, right resolve, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right meditation. So it's not connected with any specific area. It is so general that actually all human beings, no matter how they were raised, can understand these general rules. For me, this is very, very helpful because it doesn't clash with any of my previous understandings, religious or not religious. It's like I'm talking with some, I don't know, Richard Dawkins or anyone who thought, let's say, about human life and had maybe problems with suffering or all those things which many religions cannot resolve. What's your thinking about this?
Well, my thinking is that when you compare Buddhism and Judaism, you may be in danger of making a false comparison, because judging by your words and judging by what I researched and what I know about Buddhism is more like a philosophy, as you said, than a religion, right?
Exactly.
When you compare Buddhism and Judaism, you may be making a false comparison, at least in a certain sense.
I didn't say that Buddhism is a religion, but as a guidance for life, I find it more useful and even today very current and modern than, let's say, Christianity. I wouldn't say Torah because I'm not so versed in Torah, but this is definitely more. I find it interesting day by day when I start learning, or if I face any of problems in my day-to-day life. I can easily find advice which is always modern, so it's not connected with any specific time. It's timeless. Therefore, I find it comparable with any religion, because religious views also tend to convey, let's say, eternal truth to people, so they help them live the best life and give the best of themselves. In that way, I can.
Did Buddha ever claim to be a prophet, or did he outright say that these are just his philosophical ideas which he found?
No, he never claimed anything. After his enlightenment, let's say so, after he became Buddha, because Buddha is enlightened human being, he started teaching about his understanding of life, and he shaped those, formed this kind of noble truths and eightfold path in teaching about life. He was never as a prophet, and he's actually, I see here in Thailand that they are not focused on Buddha like a person. They follow his advice in for living the best life possible. They are not focused on Buddha like a god or anybody. He was a human being who reached enlightenment, means detached himself from suffering.
When it comes to the eternity and the immutability of the Torah specifically, a very, very common Christian argument against Judaism is that Jews themselves added the whole body of the oral Torah in addition to the written Torah. So there is a very big problem with their objection, and that, of course, is that the Hebrew text of the written Torah consists of consonants only. Why is that a problem? Words without vowels are ambiguous, and they can be read in many different ways with altogether differing meanings. So without the oral Torah, it would be completely impossible to even read the Torah, let alone follow its commandments, right? So the Hebrew text of the written Torah implies that it was always given together with an oral tradition which explains it, right? So I think this is important. Protestant Christianity constantly attacks traditional Judaism for adding the oral Torah and thus changing the whole Torah, right? But when you actually speak Hebrew, you see the necessity and the logical conclusion that there always must have been some kind of oral tradition to accompany the written text.
Yeah, I see. I was thinking similar things when I was Christian, so yeah. This is very easy for me to follow, and I feel that when I unburden myself from what burdened me so long time, I'm easier to follow simple laws of life without 600.
Well, I would agree that some things have to change in the world, especially when it comes to technology, because technological changes enable technological progress, but I do believe that some things are eternal and immutable. And even when it comes to secular things like languages, standard languages, for example, also oppose linguistic changes. So you cannot randomly change a standardized language this way or the other once it is standardized. Even when you create new words in a standard language, I think that is only an illusion of change, because standard languages have word formation rules, how to create and how to make new words, right? So even those new words follow existing word formation rules, which also doesn't change the underlying grammatical rules how to form new words and how the language is standardized.
So you actually said very good thing. Even language evolves. Of course, many people want to freeze something, stop of evolving or whatever they do. But the meaning of Eastern philosophies is all of them teach the same. You cannot jump in the same water 2 times in life. So everything is under change all the time. I believe we can talk about that maybe another time. I believe that resistance to change or resistance to accept that something has changed or will change or the changes are unavoidable follows from the fear of losing something, which is a result of not knowing your essence of your life or not knowing you from spiritual or mental perspective, and therefore focusing on the mind and mind concepts which try to be immutable or persistent or changing not so fast. That also produces kind of a fear of change, and only change is what is unchangeable. There is only change which is 100%.
When you talk about languages, you have to be careful to differentiate languages in general and standard languages. There's a very big difference. So before language standardization, there is a high level of language change throughout history, but once you get to a level of language standardization, usually standard languages do not like changing their rules because there is no practical benefit to that. The whole practical benefit of creating a standard language is to create some kind of communication system which can be useful to further generations, right? And when you change something for no practical benefit, you actually create chaos and nihilism. I don't think that change is inherently good just for the sake of change. If something has to be changed to be better, it should. But I don't think that changing just for the sake of change is desirable, especially when it destroys an already existing beneficial system.
Of course, in terms of language, I totally agree with you, and especially with current pronouns war about pronouns in the West, which is all...
Oh, you went there.
Yeah, I mean, so but the life is changed. So I'm talking more about life. Of course, the language will follow. We don't have the same language like 500 years ago. So especially 2,000 years ago, we don't have the same language because the meaning, the progress, everything has changed. The life has changed. So of course, the language or the meaning or the concepts are also subject of change. So we cannot avoid it. That was my point. Of course, some changes are slower, some changes are faster, but you cannot jump in the same river 2 times.
Okay, Mario, thank you for the interesting discussion.
Thank you too, Robert.
And I hope to hear from you soon again.
Next time.
We are Godless Judaism.
We discuss atheism, religion, and everything else.